Hello there, you're watching QTV this morning, and I am your host, Jenna Bosonko, joined by my amazing co-host, Ibrahim Balde.
Oh, yeah. It's good to be back again.
Yeah.
It's another day, Jenna.
Yeah, ñun suñ blue lang la.
Interesting. No, blue bi dafa mer.
Dafa
mel ni communication bi day dox
Daf
si
dee
pet.
mën a dox si pet nag. Wow.
It's-
Loolu laa gis.
It's nice. I like it.
Yeah,
I like
thank you.
the blue and white.
Yes.
It's a nice mixture. Blue and white is nice.
Blue and white works.
Navy blue.
Navy blue.
Oh.
Navy blue.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And thank you for introducing yourself. Thank you for joining us, Adedrami. It's always good to have you here.
Always good
Thank
to be
you.
invited.
And is that blue or black?
It's navy blue.
Oh, it's navy blue.
What sometimes is called
Do
blue,
they call
blue
it
black.
Do they
Oh,
call
blue
it
black.
indigo?
Indigo is...
I can
is
remember when I
indigo
was
is
going to
blue,
school.
Indigo is closer to what we have under this morning.
Or under this morning.
They'll tell me go to Asobi store and get indigo.
Indigo is
Hey, so
slightly
you say
darker than this.
mangi sotu di dem school.
Wow.
Pajuf, time pajuf. Ma sotu taku dem
Kon
school.
nga won ma natali, so pare. So thank you so much for joining us. Let me just give you a rundown of what we have today before we head right on to our African proverb. We have the African proverb, we have the newspaper review, and we are joined by Adedrami to help us analyze some of the stories we have today. Also on social issues, we'll be talking about COVID-19 vaccination in the Gambia, and we'll be joined by the UNICEF country representative and the Deputy PS, Ministry of Health as well. On Community Watch, we'll be taking a look at the impact of internet on children, and we'll be joined by Ajibintu Drame to take us through this particular story she did. And we also have Sports Wall, and we'll be once again joined by Adedrami on Sports Wall to take us through what is happening in the world of sports. What is our African proverb?
We are back, and of course, African proverbs again. And this one is done by Chino Achebe. Things fall apart. A great writer.
Yep.
And of course, he served as a motivation to many people. Let's take a look at this. The lizard that jumped from the high okoro tree to the ground said he will praise himself if no one else did, Jennifer. What does this mean?
Okay, he's smiling
It's talking
there.
about it's talking about a lizard, Iroko tree.
Yeah,
It sounds like a Nigerian proverb, is it?
it's an Igbo.
It's an Igbo proverb in that sense, but I think the general sentiment of it is that in Africa, and particularly in West Africa, you hear people saying self-praise is no recommendation. You know, it's like you can praise yourself, but if I say, oh, I'm a great such and such, doesn't mean anything. It's for somebody else to tell you that you are. But the lizard is saying that if nobody else will, I will.
Well,
but for
okay.
me, I'll disagree sometimes.
I think
Mr.
so.
Ade, at times, even if you do certain things, people will not praise you. So what about you beat the drum for yourself? I mean,
well, this is true. And, you know, one of the things that this brought to mind just recently is that you go in certain countries and you will see a place or a monument named after a living person. In Western Europe, in America, Canada, you will never see that. You will never see a stadium called the Barack Obama Stadium when Barack Obama is still alive. But we do that in Africa. We name these things after living people, tend to be presidents, you know, the this, that. But it's very unusual. And it's like we want to let them know that we big them up when they're here. Sometimes it's kind of playing to their vanity.
I think things are mixed up in Africa, which needs a very good separation. Sometimes people will tend to say we don't recognize our legends until when they are gone. Sure. So don't you think it's the reason why people tend to name streets, people name certain places, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it happens, and that's always been the counter-argument, that, you know, let us praise them whilst they're alive, not when they're dead. It's like if somebody dies, no matter how wicked they were, if you go to their funeral, you only hear people saying good things about them. No.
I'm not surprised. This proverb is connected to a lizard. A lizard is always stubborn and it's always praising itself.
Yeah, so I think for me, I'm going to direct this to a personal level. My interpretation of this is seeking validation from people. And sometimes along the way, while you seek validation from other people, you can get hurt.
True.
You know, you might not realize your true self. So sometimes it has to do with you. You know, if you think you're doing well, go ahead. And it's not a problem for you to have certain people to ask for guidance. It's not like you're seeking validation, but it's just some form of guidance. Sometimes I come to your desk and ask you about certain things. It doesn't mean some of the advice that you give me, I'm going to stick to them, but I still need them. But it's not some form of seeking validation from your boss or from someone. It has to do with you, with what you want to do as an individual. And sometimes young people, I tell them, there's nothing wrong with putting your achievements out there. For me, there is nothing wrong with it. It's not about bragging. We talked about the humble aspect the last time. It's not about bragging. These are things that you worked for, and there's nothing wrong with putting it out there. You're not rubbing it on anyone's face. This is an achievement that you have.
Self-pride.
And you want to sell it. And sometimes with social media, we say, oh, she's too much on social media posting things that she's achieved. But you don't know who's watching when it comes to awards or anything. So sometimes you don't need to be afraid to actually put out some of the things that you've achieved. And don't always seek validation from people that you know will not even validate you, because some people won't in 100 years, you know, and that's just going to affect your self-esteem. So as long as you're happy with what you're doing, go ahead. But still, you need to have mentors or something, people that you can run to and ask them certain things. And it doesn't mean you have to stick to that, but weigh your options as well.
Mr. Ade, sometimes few words can help someone. Oh, wow, very good. Keep it up. Why not if you do it this way?
But sometimes you're not going to get that. And the person knows you're doing well.
That's why you have to praise yourself sometimes.
Not as in praising yourself for me, but just being content with some of the things that you are able to achieve at your own level and putting up a target whereby you're working towards achieving that.
Recognize your efforts yourself and have self-confidence and move on.
Take yourself out sometimes if you get stuff.
It's about, obviously it's about self-pride, and that's what is the analogy is all about. But it is always said that sometimes we are not the best critics of ourselves. And there's also, in a slightly different context, they said that the lawyer, the person who represents himself in court, is someone who has a fool for a client, because you might think, yes, you know, I'm good because I know who I am, I'm going to represent myself in court. But sometimes it's not about validation, but sometimes we're not honest with ourselves. We're not critical, self-critical enough, and that's why other people, it's not like you're looking to other people for validation, but sometimes other people will be more honest about you than you will be about yourself.
That's very true.
So, but it works both ways, because it's good to have self-pride and self-confidence. And I think that's what
But too much pride too is a problem. Too much of it is a problem.
Of course.
And being overconfident sometimes is a problem as well. So I think it just has to take you trying to balance things. That is why I said, in as much as you're not seeking validation from specific people, it's just good to engage certain people. Because like you said, you might not be honest to yourself. And that doesn't also mean that people should be too hard on themselves. So sometimes I'm too hard on myself. Sometimes I do certain things and I question myself. I'm like, oh, did I do this well? Despite people telling me I did it well, but I still question myself. Sometimes it helps, sometimes it doesn't.
Oh, so what do we have?
So we'll go for a short commercial break. Yes? Is that all on the program?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So we'll go for a short commercial break. And when we come back, we'll head right onto the newspaper review. Do stay tuned.
Check out the all-new Tigo app at S-Pass Motors. Call 3522-222 or 353-2222 for more information. Sharing Money, the biggest mobile money service in the Gambia, has taken mobile banking to the next level. Now you can link your Q Money wallet with your bank account. Yes, link your Ajib or EcoBank accounts with your Q Money wallet and get instant access to your cash anytime. No need to queue at the bank anymore. Transfer funds from your bank account to your wallet or your wallet to your bank account using Q Money Bank Link is the fastest, most secure and convenient way to transfer funds between your wallet and bank account. For more information, call our customer care on 133. Q Money, Sunyu Kalpe. Terms and conditions apply.
Welcome back from that short commercial break. If you're just tuning in, you're watching QTV this morning. We're done with our African proverb. It was a heated one, the discussion. Because I think I was on one side, you were on another. I think we're on the same side.
Interesting.
Right? Well, it was an interesting one. So moving on, what's on the standard?
Let's take a look at the standard. Army Arrest 6 at Senegambia Bridge. Opposition coalition talks continue. Barrow smells victory with massive crowd in West Coast region. Youth urged to avoid political violence. Okay, 8 million water project for Njien village. Senegal to take national census in 2023. Guinea junta unveils character for civilian transition. That's what we have on the standard. Okay,
moving on. This is Gambia Daily. Gambia committed to free, fair elections. Barrow targets 1,200 roads in next 5 years. 80% electricity coverage by 2023. Education Director on how Gambia met MDG parity goal. We also have President Barrow inaugurates Dampoto Health Facility, holds meeting in Mayok.
I'll jump in quickly before you go into it. I think he targets 1,200 kilometers of roads, not 1,200 roads. That's
well, that is what we have on the Gambia Daily.
I saw this. I was wondering.
No, we were there.
Yeah.
We were there.
1,200
roads.
I mean,
so that's a
am
correction.
I going to get a road at my gate?
Yeah, so that's a correction there from Gambia Daily. And I think it's important. It's not just with Gambia Daily. Sometimes we have issues as such on newspapers. So I think we need to be more careful.
I think we do. And
when it comes to these things.
Yeah, in fact, every time you invite me onto the newspaper review, I almost spend half my time wanting to edit what is in the newspaper rather than talking about it. But I always resist.
It's a very serious mistake. I mean, it can cause a lot of things. Most of these commotions are caused by the way newspaper.
But just a disclaimer, we are not trying to act anyhow when it comes to the publications from Gambia Daily. This is just a general observation that we have in relation to some of these mistakes, and it's not looking good, but hopefully it's something that can be worked on.
Yeah, that's something that can be corrected quite easily. They can say, sorry, we made a mistake. We made 1,200 kilometers.
Yes, so moving on, we have Gambia committed to free, fair elections. So what do you think it takes for a country to conduct a free and fair elections?
It takes more than words. It takes there to be a kind of level playing field for everybody, so that everybody has equal access to the media, to everything. Really, that's what makes it clearly. And that statement refers to a statement that was made at the UN General Assembly by the Vice President. I watched it. I think the whole thing is 17 minutes.
Here she's assuring.
She's and so she was saying to the to the rest of the world that they're going to be free, they're going to be fair. So yes, you need an independent electoral commission. You need people to trust the process and believe that there isn't any chicanery, any sort of underhandedness about it. People have to buy into that and believe in it, and I think that ends up making it free and fair. So generally, but yes, I mean, all the parties, they all talk about it, but I think they all have to do it. They have to do more than just talk about it, and I think most people expect that it will be free and fair in the Gambia.
Well, when you talk about free and fair elections, it takes a lot. I mean, not only talking about it, as you mentioned. It involves the collaboration of all the parties, you understand?
Sure.
Although we are in a political push and pull at the moment, I think parties should not just leave that to the ruling party to make sure the country is free and fair. In Africa, it's difficult.
It's difficult because what tends to happen is that I think people need to feel unintimidated. They need to think that if I want to vote for somebody, I will vote for this person based on my conscience or based on the fact that I believe in what they say. And so when you're talking about free and fair, I mean, what I've always, and I've mentioned this before, we were discussing this on the Week in Review, and I mentioned the fact that, I'm aware of villages where a political party leader goes and the alcalde says this whole village is going to vote for you. I've always found that kind of a bit distasteful because you've taken everybody's why is it that everybody in a particular village or town would vote for? They can vote for whomever they want to, and that should be, to me, that is free and fair. But when somebody says, you know, we're all going to vote for you, then I get slightly worried. And
Mr. Ade, that's a problem. We have that problem, not only in the Gambia. A village head coming and telling the head or any political party leader, we will all vote for you. It's a matter of sensitization, education. It's a matter of knowing your rights. It's a matter of getting the things that you need, political leaders to impress you, to show you what they can do for you.
Well, this is it, and I've said this before. You know, a lot of the times what you get with political leaders is that they don't seem to appeal to people based on their policies. Because if you look at them, a lot of them are sort of promising the same things. We're going to create more jobs for women, more jobs for the youth. Well, many of them don't go into the detail to convince you that they mean what they say. And so if you come to me, I need to be able to know the facts of what it is you're claiming you're going to do for me, and I need to be able to question you, so that even if my neighbor says they're going to vote for you, I might vote for somebody else, because I've been able to interrogate what you've told me and seen whether it's going to benefit me or not, or whether it's going to benefit my community or not. And based on that, an informed decision is then taken by me as to whether I vote for you or vote for somebody else.
Yeah. And also, I think the IEC should right now focus also on capacity building, because you can see that at some point they came out to say there was a 3,000 duplicated voter registration or something, and then later they came back to say it's because of the staff that are inexperienced or something. That is why that happened. And that's not looking good right now, and that has to do with free and fair elections.
Which is why the other day I was on here and we were talking about the fact that you need 5,000 signatures, and I was asking whether they had the resources and the capacity to be able to check for everybody who wants to be president. They need to check 5,000 signatures. How do you check 5,000 signatures that somebody has not signed 3, 4, 5, 6 times? 5,000 is a lot, and I think they're giving themselves far too much to do with that, because if, as I said, because of the fact that the fee is so low, if 18 people decide that they're going to, that's 18 people who 5,000, I could sign for you, and for somebody else. How do they check that? I think it's a nonsense. I really do. And I think they've given themselves too much of a job to do. And I think if anybody interrogated those 5,000 signatures, they'll probably see duplicates within the individual itself, and the fact that somebody has signed on behalf of somebody else and on behalf of all 18, potentially. So I think they need to do away with that, because I don't think it's workable or sensible that they should set themselves such a target. 5,000 is a lot of signatures if you think about it.
Yeah, and part of the nomination process, they're asking for a manifesto from each party leader. So I'm just wondering, I don't know if they're going to read the manifesto, see if it's feasible, if it's sustainable. I'm asking myself, I'm like, why do they need a manifesto? Because someone just can hire a PR company or something, and the person can just put stuff up for you.
But there's nothing to stop you doing that. But at least they're forcing. They're forcing. No. That's not the job of the IEC to say.
That's what I'm saying. No, I know it's not under the jurisdiction of the IEC to do that. But when they asked for it, that's what came to my mind.
No. Their job is to make sure that there is a manifesto, because they need to know, are you serious enough about this? So yes, of course, and in fact, it's not unusual, even in so-called advanced democracies, for them to get somebody to come in and write the manifesto on behalf of the party. You don't think the Prime Minister or the President, you think Trump sat down and wrote his own manifesto? No,
that's not possible.
And so the IEC's job is to make sure that there is a manifesto, and because they then say, okay, yes, this is what you're going to take to the people, this is what you're going to campaign, and then that kind of tests your seriousness. Because if you can't be bothered to even get somebody to write one for you, then how serious are you about getting elected?
I just wish there was a board or something that is responsible to scrutinize these things. You know, whereby when you come with your manifesto, they'll be like, okay, how are you going to do this? Go tell them, you know. That's what I'm looking forward to.
And this is what we're talking about, an informed electorate. Because when you present your manifesto, that's what the electorate should be asking you. How workable is this? How are you going to create these jobs for youth and for women that you claim you're going to create? Because trust me, when you see the manifestos, they will all look very, very similar.
Yeah, well, I have seen many political leaders that are invited on this TV, I mean here. I listen to their conversation with different presenters, and at the end of the time, my conclusion is, do you think this guy or this lady would be able to run this country from the way, I mean, they respond to certain things
Sure.
asked by the journalist.
Well, this is true, and again, if I keep going back to the conversation we had a couple of days ago regarding the nominations, and I said, you know, because Gambia is small, lots of people think, oh, how difficult can it be to run a country this small? And to me, that's like insulting the country. You need to be very good to run a country like the Gambia. Not just think, oh, it's so small, I can do it. And that's why you have, you know, people who are jokers, really, saying, oh, you know, I'm going to put myself up for nomination. This is serious. You know, running a country is a serious matter, and people need to take it seriously. You know, to get the Gambia up to where it needs to be, there's a lot of things that need to be done. And people who can come and do these things properly, seriously, are the only ones who should step forward. The rest just back away and let those who can do it, you know.
Yeah, so moving on, let's take a look at education. Astida Jata Jaju is the Director of Basic and Secondary Education. And here she's talking about the fact that part of their biggest achievement as a Ministry of Basic and Secondary Education is the issue of parity when it comes to education, you know, girls' education. It's one of their biggest achievements, which was in the norm, you know.
It's true. This is something that I think is to be celebrated.
Yeah.
And it's still not a battle that's been won. If you go out of certain big urban areas, you go to, you know, the rural areas, there's still the tension between people wanting their daughters to get married early rather than for them to pursue a career or finish their education. And so the battle is not won, but it seems to be one that is on the way to being won, where you get, you know, particularly, as we said, girls' education being something that matters. You know, you could get into a situation where, you know, the wife is more qualified than the husband. No disgrace, or the wife earns more than the husband. And I can say here, and for the record, you know, when I was married, my wife earned more than I did.
And it's normal.
It's not a problem. Yeah. It wasn't a problem. Yeah.
Well, the notion now is changing, like the mindset that people used to have, that the girl child, you know, have to get married and go, you know, a girl is more useful in the husband's house. I think it's changing now. It's
changing, and one of the things that I felt was very good is that we featured the young lady who qualified as the air traffic controller, and she was talking about the fact that she was able to juggle maternal and marital duties and still have a career. And she said, I have a husband who understands the nature of the work that I do. And she says, you know, for any young women or girls who are thinking of this as a career, that is what you have to have, the focus, the determination that you can do it, but also the understanding of your family and of your potential partner that, yes, you know, it's not a problem if my wife is qualified enough to do a job of that nature.
Yeah. Although it doesn't prevent you from taking up your responsibilities as a wife. I mean, you have to
and that's the point.
You have to know how to
balance.
But
the responsibility
is
both
the husband as well.
And that's
I'm
what
sorry.
I wanted to say.
You know,
there's nothing, Mr. Ade,
silly.
for me, to be honest, there's nothing like a wife's responsibility.
That's different from
that
a husband's.
Doesn't exist.
No, definitely. There is nothing like only a wife's responsibility.
No, there's even nothing like a wife's responsibility.
Responsibilities should be shared.
Yeah.
I believe that.
Yeah, it's a family. Okay, let's, Mr. Ade, let's call it this way.
That
it's a family responsibility, not a wife's responsibility.
Because what you implied, Mr. Balde, is that you said the wife should not forget her responsibility. But you didn't say the husband should not forget his.
Should take up his responsibility.
But it's always the wife's responsibility.
But at some point.
So what's the wife's responsibility?
The wife's responsibility is
washing.
There to, you know, you should be there for the family. You should be there for the kids.
In what sense?
I mean, we need you around. You don't just have to focus on your job and forget about your children.
Listen, my father was a government minister, and yet every weekend he would cook. He took it upon himself to cook Friday, you know, Saturdays and Sundays. And he was a government minister. He didn't think, oh, you know, I'm a minister, I'll leave it to my wife to do that.
If maybe my parents are watching, there's a point that my dad cooked for my mom.
It's
They share
normal.
responsibilities.
Yeah, of course.
So I know all those things.
Yeah.
It's a collaboration.
It
When
is.
I say the lady, doesn't have to be the lady have to do the
Yeah.
washing, the cooking, and everything.
Okay.
You know, we
But
all
the way you said that, it just seemed like, oh, there's a responsibility.
shouldn't forget her
She should
responsibility.
not forget. I mean, there are other women. I'm not saying all, but there are other women. They focus more on their jobs than the house thing.
Anyway,
And there are men who do that as well. So let's not even go there.
let's not go into that, because the debate, we're just going to be here till tomorrow, because we've seen men as well focus entirely on their jobs.
Exactly.
Because they are men.
Exactly.
But women have no right to focus on
No,
their
well,
work.
a man should not behave like that. I mean, you don't have
So
to
let's
behave
make
like
it
that.
balanced.
No,
Let's
it
set
should,
the record.
it should be balanced.
Listen, if
yeah?
we wanted to go into this, I came to the Gambia and I was astonished. I grew up in Sierra Leone, okay? I came to the Gambia and around Ramadan, I heard them saying, oh, the women are allowed to go early so they can go and prepare. Sierra Leone is also a majority Muslim country, not to the same extent as the Gambia. Sierra Leone is about 65 to 70% Muslim. The thought that women will be allowed to leave the office early during Ramadan to go and prepare the meal. When I mentioned it to people in Sierra Leone, they were like, what? They do that in the Gambia? I'm like, yeah they do. But, and that implies something. It implies something. It implies something about a woman's place, really, whether we like it or not. We have to be frank about it. The fact that in the Gambia, businesses, government organizations even let the women go home early so that during Ramadan so they can
Yeah, I
prepare the
think
meal.
Mufti Meg has a lecture on this, a very interesting lecture he did. And with this lecture, I think when men listen to it, at least it will help them. Because sometimes we use religion in the wrong context. And he was trying to actually clear that misconception. But anyway, we are not having this debate right here today. Ibrahima took us there.
Parity is what brought us here.
Parity
Is
in
what brought us.
education, basic education. That's what we're talking about.
Sure.
But let's also remember here that as long as we do not fight child marriage, it's law. But as long as we do not fight it as well, it might affect this parity that we're talking about. And
Sure.
it's still happening.
Yeah, I mean, there are lots of things that are law in the Gambia and in many African countries, and they just gather dust on the shelves. They're not implemented. Children working. I go to my local car garage, and two of the mechanics can't be more than 12, 13 years old. They cannot be.
Yeah.
And yet, legally, that's meant to be against the law. Yet they're there. And you can find that all over the place. There are lots of things that are law, but really, many African countries, we pass lots of laws, but they're meaningless because they're not enforced, they're not implemented. And we talk about parity, we talk about child marriage being illegal, but then you're fighting with tradition, you're fighting with culture, and so on. So there are many contesting things that actually mean that these things are not enforced.
Yeah. So congratulations to the Ministry of Basic and Secondary Education.
Keep-
But let's also remember that parity is not the only thing that we need, although it's the biggest achievement, but there are also other areas that needs improvement. So hopefully parity will be put aside where it's totally achieved, and next year we'll hear something different. So moving on, let's take a look at Guinea, because Guinea junta unveils Charter for Civilian Transition.
Sure.
I just hope we are not going to have the Mali case in this situation. I strongly hope.
Yeah, I'm old enough not to get too excited, but a bit excited.
Yeah.
Because they've come up with this charter. And it's quite interesting, Colonel Doumbouya has been named as president. They've named a civilian prime minister. However, they've also said that in the new assembly that's to be constituted, 30% should be women. Must be women, which would be a kind of game changer and a groundbreaker for this sub-region. The only one that's way, way above that, of course, is Rwanda. So there are things there that are encouraging. What they have not given is a date for the transition to happen to full civilian rule. Or what everybody is celebrating is that they have put in black and white in this charter that anybody who is part of the military junta cannot and must not take part in either national or local elections. Because it's been the thing, including here in the Gambia, people stage a coup, they then shed their military uniform, and then they stand. They have said this is banned.
Okay.
We are not encouraging that. when the transition happens, we will return to barracks. They've not just said it, they've put it down in the charter. It's in the charter.
Let's talk about our constitutions in Africa. Changing of constitutions, it's becoming the new norm. People are taking up this all the time. And one of it, on Monday, he revealed that there will be a change of constitution. Don't you think this will be a problem? It's going to cost Guinea a lot.
Well, the reason that they mentioned that there will be a change of constitution in Guinea is because the last constitution was abused by the previous president. The constitution, as it exists, says that nobody can contest 2 terms as the president. We all know what happened. Riots in which over 1,000 people were killed when Alpha Condé changed the constitution to allow himself a 3rd term. It happened in Cote d'Ivoire with Ouattara. It's happened several times in Uganda with Museveni, and which is why when Museveni started commenting on Guinea, the guy blasted him back, Doumbouya. He said, you have fiddled with your constitution so many times, don't even talk to me about democracy. Don't even go there. And so it's not necessarily a bad thing. I think if you make it, you can change the constitution to solidify it, that this is the fact, so that it can't be tweaked, it can't be changed at the whim of a president. They've even arrested the judges who allowed the constitutional change for Condé to be able to stand, because they said legally you should not have done it. The law, the constitution is not bound up in one person, but that's what we tend to get in Africa. We have these arrogant people who become president and they think they're bigger than the country, and that can you imagine Donald Trump getting to be president in America and then saying, I want the constitution to change to benefit me every time? No. It's impossible. But in Africa, we have this rubbish across the continent where people fiddle with the constitution to make themselves. And so you have to have it solid there. So it's not necessarily a bad thing.
I'd like us to look at Ecowas. I mean, when Guinea, when Doumbouya took over and Ecowas sanctioned Guinea, so can you tell me the credibility of Ecowas?
Again, ECOWAS's credibility is very low because when presidents and leaders in various ECOWAS countries have fiddled with the constitution to benefit themselves, ECOWAS has been silent on that. So they can't have it both ways. You can't allow these people to abuse the constitution, and then when they get removed in a coup d'etat, you then step up and then say, oh, well, these people are showing they're not true Democrats. If you're going to fiddle with the constitution just to benefit yourself, you're not a Democrat. Don't try and wear democratic clothing, you know. And so, again, Doumbouya just said, he said, when Condé changed the constitution, you said nothing.
Nobody talks about it.
Said, and when Ouattara changed the constitution, you said nothing. So don't come and lecture us on that. So
I think ECOWAS really needs to work on its credibility.
Do you know Tatam is a coup d'etat?
Well, it is essentially.
The president of Guinea-Bissau says Tatam, changing the constitution to Tatam is a coup d'etat.
Sometimes when we say African, like constitutions in general are supreme law, sometimes in Africa I question that. I'm like, is it? Considering the fact that you can just tamper with it and do whatever you want, then we question its, you know, supremacy and all of that.
Well, indeed, and you know, constitutions should be above tampering with. You have things like, you know, even in America you have, you know, such and such amendment to the Constitution, but they're never that huge, particularly relating to one person. But almost every time a constitution has been changed in Africa, it's to benefit one person. I mean, one of the worst was in Uganda, where the age limit was 75. When Museveni reached 75, he said, and you can find this on the internet, he then said there'd been a mistake in his birth certificate and that he was really 72. And he's now done 5 terms.
Crazy.
Oh.
Yes, so I think time is up already. Senegal to take national census in 2023. You know, time is up already. But I think, you know, census sometimes in Gambia, you talk to people and they're like, oh, they don't even do their census right. Oh, the census is not right. When you talk to people, that is what they tell you, you know. So it's a big question.
Yeah, I know you say time is up, but, you know, one of the reasons why I think people question it, and again, people say, oh, no, here he goes again. If you had streets that were named, houses that were numbered, you can say in number 10, Jenabasonko Street, there are 5 people, and so on and so on. And that way you can identify and you can count people. Otherwise, is pure guesswork.
Yeah, it is. So thank you so much, Adedrami, for joining us here. It was a good one. I know Ibrahima brought in a debate at the latter part. So we're going to organize a proper debate.
There'll be a time we'll do.
Yes, we will do a proper debate. But it's 2 against 1 anyway. So where do you start?
Marital roles.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Okay. The city of Kachadula just sent me something regarding that debate.
Yes.
But we'll talk about it another time.
We'll talk about that at another time. So
Okay.
now digital media have transformed the world into a global village, making communication easy and bringing us together. The Gambia has more smartphones than people. However, easy access to digital media comes with advantages and disadvantages. So in this report by Ajibintu Drame, she takes a look at the impact of digital media on minors, particularly school children. Let's take a look at that, and when we come back, we'll be joined by Ajibintu Drame.
Digital media can facilitate social interaction and empower people. The voiceless are given a voice, increasing civic participation in the social discourse. And we have all become hooked on them, especially the smartphone. The Gambia has a higher rate of smartphones per person than the European Union. In the Gambia, data shows 1.4 smartphones per person compared to the EU's 1.2 per person. In 2020, there were 3.24 million smartphones in the Gambia. However, many parents around the world have been concerned about the impact of digital media on the lives of their children. Malanding Balo, the principal of Ndaus Comprehensive Junior School, explains the impact of digital media on children, most especially students.
Most of the times, what the parents will tell us is that they want the children to come with the telephones and mobile phones in particular, so that when they are at work, they will be able to contact the children anytime they wish. But notwithstanding, we also ensure that in as much as we allow them to bring them to school to be able to get in touch with their parents, they are not supposed to be misused or abused in the classroom. You know, and some of them even go to the extent of watching pornographic films in the class, and that is the highest degree of abusing the gadgets. We don't take that lightly. That attracts a suspension.
Fabian Aina Grant Sanyang is a principal researcher at the Ministry of Basic and Secondary Education and a senior nursing officer at the Edward Francis Small Teaching Hospital. She says that digital media have reduced the amount of quality time parents spend with their children.
They are minors, they have to just concentrate in their education. I know that using these gadgets, as I mentioned, it is good. It's a multitask. It's engaged young ones to learn beyond what their parents don't teach them. But at the same time, for the health consequences as well, it can have an impact in the life of the child.
Ami Senghor, a mother whose 7-year-old daughter is an active TikTok blogger, explains how she monitors her daughter. Since she was little, she has loved acting, dancing and modeling. At first, I was not in support of it, but my sisters will shoot videos of her and even to put her on their status, which I disagreed with it because she is little. Later, I was convinced by my sisters to let her continue with it, because it might be her future career or dream. I review the videos before they post them. I don't want her to be doing videos that I don't like. I am very keen on what she wears before shooting videos, because we have a culture here. I don't want her to influence other kids into doing acts which people won't like. What she is doing is not distracting her from schooling. She is really trying in her education, and I will support her in achieving her dreams. Umi Eska, Ami's daughter and active TikTok user with lots of followers and comments from well-wishers, says she aspires to be a famous actress. I choose to do TikTok because I want people to like me. I also want to make people laugh, and it will help me in my future career. Even though this is the career path Umi wants to follow in future, some have stated that she could concentrate on her schooling instead. In as much as it has become a regular feature in our lives, parents must work out how best to guide their children's use of this ubiquitous double-edged sword. Ajibintu Drame, QTV News.
Ajibintu Drame there on impact of the internet on children. And according to her report in the Gambia, data shows that 1.4 smartphones per person compared to EU's 1.2 per person, and in 2020 there were 3.24 million smartphones in the Gambia. So welcome to the program. So before we get into the impact of internet on children, what does this tell you? The fact that in the Gambia we have more smartphones than even people.
Well, it is, I might say it is amazing,
Okay.
or it is ironical, because 1.4 smartphones, if you can see, probably it might be teenagers might get access to these. Because I have spoken to principals, and I have also spoken to an educationist on it. Lots of these phones, probably, aside from adults, teenagers get access to these phones. So it is quite worrying too, because if teenagers, particularly school-going children, have smartphones, is multitask, and teenagers using it in a right way or in a wrong way, it is quite worrying.
Yeah, so I think smartphones now, everyone has a smartphone.
Everybody has
Yeah, I think smartphones are very important. They can help their advantages in another way, but disadvantage too in another way. Let's talk about social disconnect. Today, most people are closer, but they are disconnected. So these things are also a problem. Everybody is busy on the phone, especially small children. They don't concentrate anymore. How did you say this, Ajibintu?
Yes, like you said, smartphones can, lessen relationships, especially, let us talk about our home settings. For instance, when you are in the sitting room, the TV might be on, but everybody, the mom, the dad, the kids will be busy in his or her phone, using their phones without even watching the TV or even interacting, talking about issues, probably issues affecting the children. For instance, you can talk to your kids what was happening today at school, but it has lessened the interaction between parent and children, which is quite worrying and sad. And talking about students particularly, like I said, it is multitasking. It has its merits and demerits. But talking about children in school, they use it in numerous of ways. For instance, they might be in class, instead of, interacting with the teacher or paying attention during lessons, they would be busy using their phones, either watching TV, watching films, to an extent of watching pornographic films, according to the principal I interviewed. So if these kind of things are happening without proper monitoring, then there is something missing.
Yeah, but don't you think we have to be realistic here in relation to this? Because technology is evolving every single day.
Nobody can deny that.
For young people to use mobile phones, there's nothing we can do about it. I'm happy you talked about monitoring, and we will get into the monitoring aspect. But don't you think we have to be realistic? There's nothing that we can do about the fact that these kids must have their smartphones, but probably there are measures that need to be put in place. So according to the woman that you spoke to, what were some of the measures that she decided to put in place, considering the fact that she's a mother of a young TikToker? So what are some of the measures she put in place to make sure that she's effectively monitoring her activities?
Yes, thank you for bringing that. Everything has limitations. If you give your child a smartphone or anything, you need to monitor and tell that child there is a limitation to this on whatever it may be, especially when it comes to this digital media or smartphones things. So the mother used to review videos, because she's a TikTok blogger, reviews the videos before posting it. And she wouldn't allow her do certain or imitate or impersonate certain videos in TikTok before posting it. Thirdly, she will monitor her on the things she wears, because everybody has a culture. You wouldn't allow probably a child to wear skimpy dresses, because other child might emulate her.
But for me, I just feel like that is not enough for monitoring, and that doesn't have to do with the mom, but I just feel like there should be like regulatory measures, because for instance, if you take a look at YouTube, there's YouTube for kids. So these kids are just limited there. Sometimes you see babies typing certain things on YouTube, and then it will pop up and you don't know how that happened. So as long as we know that there's nothing we can do when it comes to kids having smartphones or tablets, I just feel like there should be apps or certain regulations that are so tightened in a way that these children must sign in with certain documents for them to determine what their age is. What do you think?
Yeah, like what you just stated. It all boils down to the limitations.
Yeah.
You know, it has its advantages and disadvantages. YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, you name them.
Okay.
You know, so monitoring them, you can monitor them on how they use the apps. For example, because this is a huge issue. It is a global debate on how, you know, in this digital technology or media, how you can upbring or nurture your kid to grow up in how you want him or her to be.
Okay, and also to further prove that at some point young people must have smartphones or tablets, we've seen that during the COVID-19 pandemic, MOPSI used the iLearning initiative, and through that, children must possess digital devices to be able to learn. So like I mentioned, the solution to this is to make sure that these apps are regulated in a way that you have to put in a birth certificate or something for them to determine which site you can visit or whatnot. Because the reality is that we cannot fight it.
No,
honestly,
we can, but we can also fight it in another way. Because like I said, it is a global debate in children's upbringing. And it, everybody is a collective responsibility.
Okay.
In the part of tech giants, society, stakeholders, and even parents.
Okay.
So through that, it can, you know, maybe at least limit the child on what he or she does.
Yeah, that is why I said the apps.
Yeah, the
if
apps.
these apps, you get to put in a birth certificate number or age something or an email, because already it is happening. There are certain sites you can't use if you don't have an email address or you don't put in certain things. So Ibrahim, I think you had a question.
Yeah, I mean, it's very difficult to control.
Yeah.
Control mechanism is a problem. I think parents should take up the responsibility to talk to their children. One-on-one conversation is important.
Yeah.
Look, don't go to this site, don't do this. It's not good for you.
Yeah.
I think surely and hopefully we will get used to this, and it will change. The trend will change, Ajibinto, because smartphones today, most of these kids, they use it. I can tell you, 75% of them are not using it for education.
No,
well, we can't tell, Ibrahim. We can't tell.
For me, I can tell.
But with this COVID-19 pandemic, we don't have evidence as to what the children, 75% of them have been using it for the
When you look at it,
I think there should be some data.
Some are using it for education. Some will use it for education, but most of them will be on their phone,
on their apps,
movie, WhatsApp, Facebook,
and
Instagram. I can tell you.
Just like Instagram, for instance, a survey in 2017, it was termed as the worst social media network.
Okay.
Imagine, especially for teenage girls, because like you just said, there should be measures in place in these apps or social networks on how children should use it. But IG, Instagram, it does not have that. Anybody can use it, and it is triggering lots of anxiety, depression, you know, which is very bad for our kids, especially children. You know, so it is quite worrying.
Yeah, it is worrying.
That's why in this particular thing or debate, tech giants have a big role, a huge role to play in it.
Right. So thank you so much, Ajibintu Drame, for joining us in relation to the impact of the internet on children. You know, Balde, you have a child here. I know you put up measures, right? At some point.
I mean, it's difficult, but that's what we should do.
Yeah,
communication. Communication with your child.
And this takes me to our conversation yesterday that we had, the fact that there's no adolescent dialogue with their parents. Because if the adolescent dialogue comes in, then the parent will be like, if you watch pornography, it might lead to this. And this is what happens to you, if that is being told. But if kids don't know and they're so curious to know what this is about, they will go and check it out.
I can remember telling
or even monitor the phones. Like like a parent give your child, you give your child your phone. A phone, so take the phone and monitor the child, which app she uses or he uses, which sites,
and even talk to him. Kids can be very smart. They can delete these.
I can remember telling my 17-year-old sister, I added you on TikTok. I am monitoring you.
How?
Yes,
How will you?
Any video you
post,
a video that is not, I mean, I am monitoring.
You're
so,
monitoring
so make
that.
sure you know what you post.
Oh, she might even block you.
Yeah,
You won't
she
know.
anyway, as time goes on, like I mentioned, the solution to this is just having conversations with our children.
Communication.
If the conversation does not happen, they wouldn't know what to do or what not
You know,
to do.
there was a time mobile phones are
Yeah.
only for elders. But
Yeah.
now it's changed.
I
you
am
know.
100% in support of the fact that it is changing and
Yeah.
everybody deserves to have a mobile phone for communication. That is what I
But for the right purpose, when
For the right
especially when
purpose.
it comes to children.
when
the
it
right
comes to
purpose.
children, but they do need it for emergencies and all of that. Thank you so much, Ajibintu Jame, for joining us on this. So we will go for a short commercial break, and when we come back, we will head right on to social issues. We'll be joined by the country representative of UNICEF, and we'll be talking about COVID-19 vaccinations in the country. Do stay tuned.
Light. From the beginning of time, light has been there.
It is integral to our survival and to our way of living.
We need light to work,
To build,
to grow things, and even to see our loved ones.
light makes things easier and better.
So QCell has changed the way you buy Q-Power to make it easier and more accessible.
You can now access the same service quickly and get your cash power tokens instantly with the new QCell Q-Power code.
To light up your world, simply dial *363#.
With a touch of your fingers,
With ease and convenience from the comfort of your home or office,
you can bring light into your world instantly with *363#.
Q-Power, lighting your world.
QCell Sunyabus.
We innovate, others follow.
Looking for the fastest and easiest way to receive money transfers from abroad? Well, QMoney and RIA just made it happen. Now you can receive international money transfer from RIA directly into your QMoney account with no additional cost. Once you receive an SMS alert about your transfer, walk into any QMoney agent across the country to receive your payment for free, or use the money immediately to buy credit, QPower, and other QMoney services. It's fast, safe, and convenient. For more info, call customer care on 133. QMoney, Sinu Calpe. Terms and conditions apply.
Viewers, from that short break, if you're just tuning in, you're watching QTV this morning, and like I mentioned, now we're heading right onto social issues, and we're joined by the UNICEF country rep, Gordon Jonathan Luis, and we were supposed to be joined by the Deputy Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Health, but unfortunately he's unable to join us due to reasons beyond his control, so we'll just be joined by UNICEF country representative. And the reason why he's here today is as a result of a Twitter post that he put out that actually sparked a conversation in the country, and the fact that average daily COVID-19 vaccination in the Gambia is at 600 doses, and we need daily vaccination to be 3,000 doses. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Good morning. How are you today?
Fine, thank you.
Good, fantastic.
Yes, welcome to
Good
this
to be
morning.
here. Thank you very much. Congratulations on the preceding show, which is also on issues related to children that we're very much interested in. So it's good topics that you were discussing.
Good topics.
Yeah.
Yes, so now let's take a look at COVID-19 vaccinations.
Sure.
First of all, before we go into the Twitter post, let's talk about the work that UNICEF have been doing in relation to COVID-19 and vaccinations in
Sure.
general.
Well, let me just say that as a member of UNICEF and also of the United Nations system, our responsibility obviously is to work very closely with the Ministry of Health and other institutions that are part of the national response to mitigate the impact of COVID-19 on the population. So obviously since the beginning of the pandemic in March of 2020, we've been working in terms of rehabilitating health infrastructures, providing facial masks to different sectors, health workers, teacher response. And on the issue of vaccination, obviously, we form part of the larger initiative which is called COVAX, which was instituted as a mechanism to be able to guarantee that all countries in the world, low-income countries, middle-income countries, high-income countries, could have access to the vaccines they require to vaccinate the majority of the population against COVID. And that's one of the efforts that obviously we have been working very closely with the, specifically the Ministry of Health. And I'd like to actually give a tremendous shout out to the Ministry of Health, specifically to the national and the local EPI teams, without whom the coverage would not be as good as it is right now. At the moment, we have about 11% of the total adult eligible population for to be vaccinated against COVID vaccinated. The average on the African continent is between 5 to 8%. So having 11% of that population vaccinated in the country is really quite good. That's a very positive piece of information. We need to run with it. It indicates that it's possible to reach the targets that we're looking for, but we're also at a crossroads. This is a tremendously important crossroads because where a lot of countries might not have access to the supply of vaccines, in the case of the Gambia, we have high supply of vaccines. Unfortunately, some of them are expiring relatively soon, and we also have a situation combined with the vaccine hesitancy, which is not unique to the Gambia. It's something which happens in every single country of the world, but we have an issue with vaccine hesitancy that we also need to address.
Well, when you talk about vaccines, they are very important, and of course, there was a time the Ministry of Health was rolling the vaccines, and there was a lot of vaccine in hesitancy in the country. And what did you make of that?
Well, I mean, this is, we have studied vaccine hesitancy. We currently, at the moment, have a sociological KAP study, a knowledge, attitudes, and practice survey on the on this particular issue. And I think we can actually segment the different types of populations that form part of this big thing called the vaccine hesitance, because they're not all the same. And they have very specific concerns. So you have a group which is essentially the COVID and the vaccine deniers. They do not believe that COVID exists, and they don't believe that the vaccines are a good thing. That group is generally, in many countries, including the Gambia, a relatively small minority. Then you have individuals who accept that COVID exists, but they're not entirely sure about the safety or the efficacy of the vaccine. And that tends to be a larger group of individuals. And that's a group that we need to focus on, providing different types of sources of information in languages that they can understand, not just in English, but the principal languages of the country, driving home a couple of messages. COVID exists. It's a reality. We know this. The vaccines are safe. They have been proven to work against not avoiding transmission, because we know that even if you're vaccinated, you could get infected. But the most important issue is that if you're vaccinated and if you get infected with COVID, the likelihood of having severe symptoms is extremely low. The likelihood of ending in the hospital is extremely low, and the likelihood if you end up in the hospital of dying is extremely low. So that's another message. The vaccines are safe. The vaccines, protecting the vaccines save lives. And that's one of the obvious messages that we want to get out to the vaccine hesitants who are out there. Obviously, you have others who might claim for religious reasons that they don't want to, or that they cannot take the vaccine. We already have had very interesting statements and pronunciations that have been made by Supreme Islamic Council leaders in the country, saying that you can take the vaccine. You can actually even take the vaccine during religious holidays. So we're working very hard on this to try to ensure that the message gets out. And using your platforms is particularly important for people to hear this message as well.
Yeah, so moving on, let's take a look at children and COVID-19. Yes, the new academic year has just started. So any consultation between the Ministry of Basic and Secondary Education in relation to the new academic year, and what has been the plans that are put in place to make sure they have a smooth academic year amidst COVID-19?
Absolutely. That's a tremendously important question, and one of the priority groups in the National Vaccination Plan against COVID are teachers. We started to have a conversation with both ministries, health and basic and secondary education. As the school year began, the estimates were that less than 27% of school teachers were vaccinated against COVID. The importance of having teachers fully vaccinated in the classroom is fundamentally to protect the educational continuity of children. So the more teachers are vaccinated, the less ill that they will become and the less impact that you will have on the quantity of time that the teacher can spend with the students. And loss of educational and loss of learning has been one of the tremendously important negative impacts of COVID on children. It has happened here in the Gambia. Education has been delayed. So our advocacy was for the Ministry of Health and the Ministry of Basic and Secondary Education to get together and to plan together. In other words, to have it seen not entirely and just as a health intervention, but as a larger intervention. And the lesson that we learned there, and this is important because there are other priority groups that are lagging behind, security forces, the hotel industry, and so on. The lesson there is that the Ministry of Health needs to sit down with those sectors. The Gambia Tourist Board, for example. The Gambia Tourist Board knows their sector, knows the situation and the dynamics. They can advise the Ministry of Health what is the best way to reach that particular sector with the messages and eventually with what do we want? We want the vaccine in their arms. That's the core thing that we're looking for. So intersectoral planning, the Ministry of Health reaching out, working with all of the other sectors so that the outreach can be much bigger. And I'm sure that if that happens, we are going to be able to come back to the high levels of vaccination that we had. When we received the first United States government contribution of Johnson & Johnson vaccines, we were vaccinated at the rate of 8,000 to 10,000 people per day. That dwindled to about maybe 5,000 to 6,000 per day, and at the moment, as you know, the statistics are pointing out that we're vaccinating less than 600 people per day.
So let's take a look at access to water. I'm a keen follower of UNICEF's Facebook page, and I saw that you're campaigning in relation to access to water for school-going children. And taking a look at COVID-19, you need water for its prevention. So what is UNICEF doing in relation to access to water? What is the plan? Because when it comes to that post, it was quite short, so I couldn't tell some of the significant strides in those areas.
Well, I mean, the relationship, and since we're on the topic of COVID fundamentally, the relationship between access to safe water and sanitation and COVID is that the more opportunities children, adolescents, and family members have access to clean and safe water, not only for personal consumption, but also for hand washing. And if the practice of hand washing is progressively increased in the country, then you have a situation where clean hands are essentially a barrier against the COVID-19 virus. So it is a very important area of our country program focus here in the Gambia. We are also working very closely between the Department of Water Resources and the Ministry of Basic and Secondary Education to ensure that school facilities also have adequate, not only toilets that are gender sensitive, toilets for girls, toilets for boys, but also adequate water supply and hand washing facilities in order to be able to combat the transmission in school settings. So clean hands, lower probability of getting infected with COVID.
Important. Let's go back to vaccine safety. It's important because the reason why we have a lot of noise out there, we have divided opinions too, is the safety. People want to know the thing that is going in their body.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that that's one of the reasons why people have this vaccine hesitancy, is concerned about the information that's out there. But the most important point is that vaccines that have this what we call the emergency use listing are not only the COVID vaccines. We have had numerous situations in history where a lot of vaccines have only been developed with the emergency use approach, and they have been really strategic in fighting epidemics. In the case of all of the COVID-19 vaccines that come to the Gambia, all of them have received the WHO emergency use listing.
Yeah.
In some cases, they have been approved by other health regulatory agencies in other countries. So, for example, the Johnson & Johnson vaccine has FDA, Food and Drug Administration approval, and all of them have to have approval by your own national medical regulatory agency, which they have. The key concern that we need to put out there is that the likelihood of getting a severe reaction to any one of these vaccines is extremely low. We're not saying that it's not going to happen, but the likelihood that it will happen to either to any one of us going to get vaccinated is really very low. So that message is key. The vaccines are going to give you certain side effects which are perfectly normal. In some cases, even quite similar to the regular flu vaccine that many of us have taken. So the key message is COVID-19 as a pandemic has not disappeared. It still exists, and it's here in the Gambia. The vaccines are safe, and they are the quickest, safest, most efficacious manner of getting us back to life as normal. But for this to happen, we really need, at this particular point in time, an all-hands-on-deck approach, specifically so that come the end of November, which is when the majority of the vaccines that we have in stock, the majority of these vaccines are used.
And it's 160,000 doses.
At the moment, that was the estimate that I was using in my Twitter storm over the weekend, and these are reliable figures because they're based on all of the information that's coming out of the Ministry of Health. We are part of the Ministry of Health COVID vaccine technical working committee, so all of the information, particularly on the numbers of the vaccines that we still have and the number of vaccines that we run a risk of losing if we don't step up the campaign, are all official data. And let me say that that we know that the Ministry of Health is now planning a reactivated, intensified campaign that will last approximately 2 weeks, so that nobody in the country should be able to say, I don't know where to go to get my vaccine. The vaccine is not available, or we've been turned away from any a health post or a health center. So availability is not the problem. What we need to do is get the word out there. Parents who have been vaccinated, talk to their brothers, talk to their sisters. Individuals who have been vaccinated, talk to your friends, motivate them to get vaccinated. And one very interesting thing that we have seen is a very fascinating gender dimension here regarding COVID vaccination. As you know, we have approximately maybe 172,000 individuals in the country that have been vaccinated. That's the 11% that I was referring to. For every man who's been vaccinated, 1.2 women have been vaccinated. And I find this very interesting because that means that we can work with women's movement, gender empowerment movements, because we feel that when women transmit messages regarding social welfare, public health, community well-being, they do it in a way which is much more empathetic. I think they have greater reach, so we really need to be working with these groups. We have to be working with, for example, there's the Inter-Party Committee. They have committed themselves to free and fair, non-violent elections. Why not get them to commit themselves to incorporate it in their platform, and particularly during the political rallies, they can reach out to the Ministry of Health. Can we have a vaccination post with 2 or 3 colleagues from the EPI program to administer vaccinations to our supporters?
And to further strengthen that, we've seen that with your post, it has actually sparked a national conversation, because we've seen Salutal as well saying maybe our political parties, currently the biggest crowd pullers, or even artists planning to have shows, should insist that their supporters should be vaccinated. So I think it is important that some of these suggestions are coming out. Yes.
I think we need to think outside of the box. We have to use the traditional approaches that we know are effective and have been proven to work, but we really have to, from now up until the end of November, we have less than 2 months to go, or a little bit over 2 months. We have to use absolutely everything in our power. The political rallies, churches, the mosques have also a tremendous, because they also pull in their own crowd, festivals, cultural events and so on. So our advocacy is all hands on deck. Get the message out. Vaccines are safe, and nobody can say they don't know where to get a vaccine in the country if they want to get a vaccine. So really, go out there and spread the word.
Time is against us.
I'm sorry.
I wanted to ask, what is the age range for the vaccination?
At the moment, the national plan is vaccinating people 18 and above. That's the that has been generally the initial plan. Any decision which would imply vaccinating below that age group has to be taken by the Ministry of Health, because that's a public health decision. It has to be based on science, on evidence and facts, and it's also a policy decision that they would need to take. So
so we're following developments from the WHO in relation to these things. I know Morocco is planning to do that, but it doesn't mean we should follow suit if we do not have the evidence. So thank you so much for coming.
Not at all. Thanks to the both of you.
Yes, and I mean, I wanted to engage you on the on the education director, saying that their biggest achievement has to do with parity, girls' education. But I'm afraid in another show we might engage you.
I'd love to come back to talk
because
about
I know
that,
UNICEF
really,
has been doing quite well when it comes to gender parity in education. But let's book another appointment. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll go for a short commercial break, and when we come back, we'll head right onto Sports World. We'll be joined by Ade Durami to take us through what is happening in the world of sports. Do stay tuned.
Novelas no gungeti sama keji ba xetine duma tok duma tayi man dal de mokoy wëri parfum novelas ko biski kër gi xet gi day neex parfum novelas moy waaja li moy parfum novelas parfum bi dafa neex forest bi dafa neex saxla bari dafa neex li moy parfum novelas parfum bi dafa neex almadina boko pompe xet gi day gunduni li moy parfum novelas baxur bi dafa neex brise marine bi ak yepane ak novelas feppay xeñ neex.
To make sure your company's products and services reach your potential customers, it is essential that you choose the right channel for your marketing purposes. QTV has the widest reach locally and beyond, and we can give your business the visibility it needs. Call QTV Marketing on +220 324 4444 or email us at marketing@qtv.gm and take your business to the world.
Q Money, the biggest mobile money service in the Gambia, has taken mobile banking to the next level. Now, you can link your Q Money wallet with your bank account. Yes, link your Ajib or EcoBank accounts with your Q Money wallet and get instant access to your cash anytime. No need to queue at the bank anymore. Transfer funds from your bank account to your wallet or your wallet to your bank account using Q Money Bank Link is the fastest, most secure, and convenient way to transfer funds between your wallet and bank account. For more information, call our customer care on 133. Q Money, Sunyu Kalpe. Terms and conditions apply.
welcome back from that short break. If you're just tuning in, you're watching QTV this morning. And guess who's back? Ade Drame. Thank you for joining us. Take us through what is happening in the world.
A pleasure to be back. And it's about football. I always try and make sure that the sport isn't always about football, but this is a very important story. Okay. FIFA has got lots and lots of funding, in fact billions, to actually develop football across the world. And so coming up on QTV, we're going to have a very special report about our colleague Babu Kasi. He's been doing this story for about 4, maybe 5 weeks. And it's going to be on the news in 2 parts, and also there's going to be a special edition of it on Q Sports. Okay. So let's take a look at it, and when we come back, I'll explain why it is we've decided to do this story. There's a video, short video, and just let viewers watch, and then when we come back, I'll delve into the story.
On September 20th, 2021, the current Gambia Football Federation executive celebrated 7 years in office. The executive and staff can be credited with sustaining and developing the national leagues in the country, especially through the COVID-19 pandemic, registering the various national team categories in different competitions, including registering successes by the under-20s, twice in WAFO competitions, capacity building for football stakeholders, with the biggest achievement undoubtedly being the Gambia's qualification to the Africa Cup of Nations for the first time. However, these successes have not shielded the Football Federation from criticism by stakeholders on the way they are running the game in the country, particularly in relation to the funds from FIFA meant to develop football infrastructure. The FIFA Forward initiative was launched in 2016 and set aside $2.8 billion globally for football development projects. The funds are available to be accessed by national federations from 2016 to 2022. For Africa, the FIFA Forward Impact Map shows that out of $717 million available, just over $439 million, accounting for 51% of the fund, has been approved or disbursed for 306 projects. Heading the list of projects expected to benefit is the proposed football parks renovation, with the Gambia Football Federation promising the stakeholders that they would develop and build 10 football mini-stadia in the country. The money to be used for this project works is from FIFA, who would ask for certain requirements and proposals before releasing funds. For the Gambia, FIFA data shows that $11.4 million has been available since 2016, of which $7.8 million has been approved. Since 2017, the Gambia Football Federation has been informing the public through their websites and other social media sites on project signings and money secured from FIFA to rehabilitate football pitches. However, stakeholders continue to ask questions about the many millions secured and why not a single football park has been.
There you have it. Now this is something FIFA Forward, it was announced in 2016, or 2015, and then it came into play in 2016. And something I've been following even before I even joined QTV, because I'm passionate about football. People know I wanted to be a professional footballer at one time. Thankfully, my parents had other ideas. But really what's happened is FIFA announced this money, $2.8 billion for global football development across the world. 717 million of it was to come to Africa. And each football federation gets a certain amount of money. In the case of Gambia, up to $11.4 million has been available since 2016. Unfortunately, in this part of the world, when I say in this part of the world, the sub-region, a lot of the countries have actually not tapped into that money. It's there, it's sitting there. Wow. Sierra Leone has not taken a single cent yet, mainly because their football federation is dysfunctional. However, our near neighbors, Guinea-Bissau, not Guinea-Bissau, I beg your pardon, Mauritania, they've taken about 51% of it, and they built a fantastic national stadium. We know because we've seen it and we went there when they inaugurated it. In the case of the Gambia, as is said in the report there, and people will be seeing the sort of longer report on the news, really the Football Federation has made all these announcements about signing contracts with people and so on, and yet since 2016, if you go around, you can't find anything that you can point at and say, this is where the millions have gone and this is how it's been spent in terms of improving. Certain football stadium, mini stadiums have been closed, supposedly for refurbishment, and yet we've not seen any evidence of what has happened with it. And that's what kind of led us to go into this investigation to see. Now, just to be clear, in every country, FIFA is quite specific. the Football Federation has to stand aside and apart from government. If government gets involved, FIFA can dissolve that federation. So federations can't hide behind, oh, we're run by government with this. They have to stand alone and be separate and independent from government. If government intervenes, FIFA will dissolve that football federation. And so when we're talking about the Football Federation, it's nothing to do with government. It is a stand-alone entity. And as was said in the report, the current board and the current people who run the federation have been in power as of September for 7 years. And that's long enough. However, since 2016, all this money has been swirling around. And if you look at it, what's interesting also about Mauritania is when you look at it, none of their funding has gone on travel. None of their funding has gone on capacity building. If you go on the Gambia one, that's what it says some of the funding has gone on to. All of the one in Mauritania has gone on building stadia, and they've built some fantastic stadia. So we're asking the question, you know, what's happening with the millions? And for me, the fact that we spent 3 weeks chasing the people who could tell us, and they couldn't be bothered to tell us, I think is quite insulting. And I don't care if they hear this and they say that, because in this country, football matters to people, as it does in many African countries. And I think they owe it to people to explain, because as I said, when they've announced that they've signed contracts with people, they've been willing to hold press conferences, invite us along. We've seen the signings. Well, where's the evidence of what has happened with the funding? Tell us. That's all we're asking. We're not trying, it's not a witch hunt, it's not anything, we are concerned. There are people who've had to move where they've played their Nawe turn and so on because you've closed down the football.
Mr. Ade, I agree. I visited many mini stadiums and I feel very disappointed, you know, with all the monies that they collect, with all these things. At the end of time, you cannot find anything on the ground.
You know, and what's for me is tragic about this is that this is money that FIFA is actually throwing at us. And saying, and you know, the money is available until only next year. If we don't take it, we might lose it. And so the fact that we've not even taken, I don't know, 51% of it so far, you go to places like Egypt and most of the North African countries, they've taken 100% of the money. They've taken all of the money that is due because, what? They've been able to put in place systems that they can prove to FIFA. You give us the money, this is what we will spend it on. And with us, and it's just not, I mean, we're talking about Gambia because we're here, but it's not just Gambia. Senegal hasn't done that much better. Guinea-Bissau, even worse. They haven't taken a penny either. And yet Mauritania, which is not that far away from us, they've taken some of the money and we can see the evidence of where it has been spent.
So you're trying to tell us that so far in Gambia, the money have been spent on just capacity building and travels?
Well,
or the evidence is not there yet?
Well, no, never mind the evidence is not there. This is what they have reported to FIFA. So if anybody goes on the FIFA forward impact map, it's not my words, it is there. This is obviously what they've told FIFA. The same FIFA forward impact map will tell you, regarding Mauritania, they have not taken a single cent for travel or capacity building. They've spent some of it on refurbishing their headquarters, and potentially when you look at the Gambia one, it also says, you know, some of it has gone on refurbishment of HQ, so we don't know. But all we were asking for these 3-4 weeks of trying to do this story was, where has the money gone? Please tell us and point to it and say, this is what is going on. And since 2016 until now,
give you answers.
We've not been able to get answers. So maybe this report, once it goes out, will prompt them to actually step forward. But it should not take something like this. I think they owe it to us, they owe it to the public, and also they owe it to FIFA to actually say, this is where the money has gone and this is how it's been spent.
Well, if we are very serious with our sports, our football, I think certain things should be put into place, like the mini stadiums, the training ground of these players. We've complained. You remember the other time when Gina Bass was in Tokyo, we said Gina should move from the Gambia to a better place for training. We can make it in the Gambia.
I mean, already Gina does a lot of her training in Senegal anyway, at the elite. We should have one here in the Gambia. And really what, for me, the tragedy of the FIFA funds is that we could have taken all 100% of it and actually built places here in the Gambia that would mean our athletes, particularly the footballers, don't have to go anywhere for training in terms of mini stadium and so on. The money is there. Take it, use it, but just take it and use it and let us know how you have used it and where it has been used.
Mr. Ade, the money is there. What is preventing them from taking the money?
Well, as I say, we've been trying to get answers from them without
We're
success.
Yet to know.
We've sent emails, we've had phone calls, we've got text messages, and if they want, we can show those text messages on screen. You know, so we've done nothing behind their backs. And all we've said is that, this needs to be explained to us.
Yeah.
Why have you not taken the money, and why has it not been spent? Is it because you've not been able to put in? So, I don't want to guess as to why,
Yeah.
but really those were the questions we wanted them to answer directly, and it's been a struggle to get them.
Yeah. And it's been 4 weeks.
Yes, because we kept holding back the story. We could have held it till the end of December.
Right.
But we thought, at some point we have to go with what we've got. And we've
Just
spoken to various
something.
stakeholders. We've spoken to people who've had their stadium closed. We've spoken to all sorts of other stakeholders. We've got some people from the GFF who have spoken. And so, as I said, the report is in 2 parts.
Okay.
And in the first part, we hear mainly from stakeholders. In the second part, we hear from some people in the GFF. But the people who could tell us where every single brutut has gone, I'm sorry, they've not been
it's unfortunate.
willing to engage.
Right. So
Well,
is that all on Sports World?
Well, that's it. You say, is that all? It's a big story.
It is. It is actually big.
And so that was, what we were talking. And the reason I think it mentions is because, football is changing.
Yeah.
And so we mentioned when I was on here another time, I talked about the FIFA had asked Arsene Wenger to do this survey about whether the World Cup should be held every 2 years.
Yeah.
So if you have something like this, and I'm telling you, the reason this matters is because if we build these mini stadia, Gambia can then start hosting international competitions where not every match takes place at the independent stadium.
Yeah.
They can take place around the country, and people from around the country can get to see quality football.
Yeah, and the independent stadium is not even looking good, It should be given a break right now and just concentrate on all the mini stadiums that
you're
we
being very
can build
diplomatic
through this
there.
fund.
You're being very diplomatic. It is in a shocking state.
Yeah.
It's not fit for international competition,
Sure,
and that's
sure.
a fact. And
Yeah.
this is not a secret, as we know. FIFA has already blasted it, and so has CAF.
Yeah.
So we really need to use these funds because they're there. They're sitting there gathering dust. And why?
So thank you so much, Adedrame, for giving us updates in relation to what is happening in the world of sports. But I'm afraid I might join you there because my outfit, you're
looking sporty.
Yes, I need to show this. So yeah, I'm afraid I need to.
Can I join you?
You should.
I'm feeling very lonely on this table.
Yeah,
my outfit is from Puma. So
yeah, so this outfit is from Hooray. She has a very good shop right there. So you just have to call her. The number is 30 35 810. 30 35 810. Wow. Very easy to know. So this outfit, it just fits everyone. Hijab, people want to be modest sometimes.
Beautiful. It looks very free.
I don't know about everyone. It fits every woman. It wouldn't fit Balde and myself.
It fits every woman. Thank you so much. So Kusijar?
Hitch closet.
Hitch closet.
Chum
Hussein.
Almost basically.
Wow.
Yeah. From bottom to
bottom. we should start dressing Mr. Ade. I just feel like this is so unfair. So Hitch closets, if you're watching, you need to start dressing my boss, please. I'm giving you that command.
They're telling you I don't know how to dress.
Thank you for watching.
We're also calling on sports shops across the country. Yeah. We have a sports segment, so we wouldn't mind if you come with sports gears for our presenter. We do not mind. So please come and join our team. So till we come their way tomorrow, inshallah, with another exciting episode. Bye for now.
Bye.
Novelas ni ma gunge ci sama kër gi ba xet gi ne duma toog duma tàyyi man daal de moo koy wëri parfum Novelas suñ ko bis ki kër gi xet gi day neex parfum Novelas mooy waaja lii mooy parfum Novelas parfum bi dafa neex forest bi dafa neex saxaar ba bi dafa neex lii mooy parfum Novelas parfum bi dafa neex Almadina boo ko pompee xet gi day gunguni lii mooy parfum Novelas baxuur bi dafa neex brise marine bi ak yëpp a neex
ak Novelas féppay xeeñ neex